In this video, we'll go over all the WoW news from the past week and try to compress it into a bite-sized video. This week's bonus event is Battlegrounds, if you want extra honor for doing Battlegrounds and a completely underwhelming reward for winning 4 of them, I think. And the Legion bi-weekly archaeology quest this time around is for the useless Imp Generator Trinket, so not worth doing. Hallows End starts up this week. New to the holiday this year is the toy item for 150 tricky treats that is basically a Hearthstone with a cool little animation. Now, what's great about this toy is that it can be used in place of your normal Hearthstone, which allows you to free up a bag space if you don't want to carry the Hearthstone item around with you everywhere you go. Other than that, nothing much else is different. Remember, you can get a 2-hour 10% rep and XP buff from the Wicker Man, so make sure to get that for World Quest reps and leveling alts. Blizzard announced recently that the classic demo available during BlizzCon will have a time limit on playtime, where it'll kick you off after a certain amount of time and not let you back in until an undisclosed amount of time. This is to make sure Blizzard doesn't have to spend too much on servers for a demo, and to let everyone get a turn to try it out without having hour-long queues. Also, the demo will only be for Westfall and the Barrens. You start out at level 15 and can only go up to level 19. Shadow Priests are getting some major changes in patch 8.1, but not really a complete overhaul. It would be too much to go over all of the changes, especially for people who don't play the class, but seeing as it's one of the underperforming classes of the expansion, I thought I'd share them anyway. Basically, they're increasing the amount of insanity generated through some abilities, reducing the natural drain of insanity over time, and adding the ability for all utility moves, like dispels and shields, to give insanity so you don't drop void form having to perform special tasks, or popping defensives. They're buffing a lot of the talents and changing Disperse to reduce damage by 75%, up from 60%, and it now gives a 50% speed boost as well while it's active. Also, they're adding a talent that will give it a 25% reduced cooldown and a 50% max health heal when it is used. Pretty much all of the changes are really great, and I'll have a link in the description of the video if you want to check them all out in detail. And probably the biggest news of the past week was the Azerite currency vendor being added with a new patch. To sum up what this is about, basically, when you run Mythic Plus dungeons or scrap Azerite armor, you'll get a currency. And then you can do one of 2 things with it. Either buy a random token for the head, shoulder, or chest, which will give you a random Azerite piece of gear at the eye level of the token for the slot. So buying a 380 token for a helm will give you a 380 Azerite helm. Simple stuff, only it'll have random traits. Or, for a higher price, you can buy a specific piece of gear with the traits you really want, and not have to deal with RNG at all. With the only downside is that it just costs more to buy. Basically, this currency vendor solves one of the big problems with Azerite gear, and the other changes in the PTR are looking to solve the biggest problem, being that traits are boring, and giving new traits to some classes that are nearly on par with Legion legendary-like effects. So, good news on the Azerite front. The biggest complaint people have with this change is that they want more changes. Or complaints from people who don't understand the changes completely and think it's just another layer of RNG. And now, onto DevBot with the weather. How's the weather for this year's Hallows End?
99.99% of the human population, alive or dead, doesn't know you exist. People don't think about you as much as you think they do.
Okay, that's great, DevBot. Now onto the Addon Spotlight for this week. Today's Addon Spotlight will be for handy notes, especially the Candy Buckets edition. One of the fastest ways to get a bunch of tricky treats is to just go to all the inns across the world and get the Candy Buckets, and this add-on will mark them all on the map, and make the marker go away if you already collected it, making getting the Candy Buckets easy peasy. Now into the mini fact of the week. Did you know that in early forms of testing WoW's first engine, even before the alpha, the game didn't remember your armor, and you had to re-equip it every time you entered the game? So for a year, player testing was done in their underwear, as most devs got too lazy to manually reapply armor every time they wanted to check something. And with that, I'll see you all next week.